Bradley.
Speaker, it's a pleasure to speak in this debate and to follow the member for Redcar, where I seem to remember voters recently switched from Labour to Conservative in a recent local government by-election, which is interesting. She's right that there are many challenges in policing, but there are also actually lots of positive things happening across many areas of crime and policing. It's good news that crimes which are traditionally measured by the Independent Crime Survey for England and Wales are down by over a third since 2010. And interestingly too, there's been a 15% decrease in computer-related consumer and retail fraud, which I pick out because I think it shows that police reform is in fact working in this and many areas, dealing with modern and fast-changing crimes like this, that actually makes families and communities safer as a result. It's an example of our police force making that difference online, behind closed doors, and why the effectiveness of police can't simply be measured any longer simply by the number of bobbies on the beat. We've protected police spending in real terms to ensure that the police have the resources they need to keep us all safe. We're also clear that the police must continue to reform and to look at ways to improve efficiency. However, it's not just funding and efficiency savings that are important for a well-run police service. It's ensuring that local communities receive a service that meets their local needs. Whether it's rural crime in the countryside or tackling antisocial behaviour in our town centres, those police forces need to respond to local need. And that's why we put communities in charge of local policing, so police can do what's right for their area. The locally elected police and crime commissioners are responsible for writing local policing plans, setting the budget, setting the priorities and hiring and firing the chief constable. The ability of PCCs to increase their bandy precept up to £12 next year without the need to call a referendum gives them the flexibility to increase their funding by up to £270 million. The members opposite talk about funding as they do for absolutely everything, but I'm fairly certain that the capital gains tax that they want to fund this with is paying for all sorts of other promises that we've already heard. So I'm yet to hear a genuine alternative. And they also don't seem to grasp that all funding comes from the taxpayer, whether it's local or national. And they fail to mention, of course, the huge reduction in income tax, for example, for those same taxpayers over the course of this government. In my constituency of Mansfield, there are ongoing problems with antisocial behaviour, theft and violent crime, where there needs to be further support and emphasis. And with that in mind, I welcome the fact that Nottinghamshire Police will see a 2.4% cash increase in their direct resource funding in the next financial year, and that they're recruiting 200 new officers and bringing back officers in schools as an example of what I feel is good practice. Perhaps opposition members will note that the Nottinghamshire Police and Crime Commissioner has welcomed the police settlement and the positive impact that it will have on Nottinghamshire. As well as protecting budgets, the government's also been proactively responding to the changing nature of criminal offences. I welcome the plans to tackle offensive and dangerous weapons by restricting the online sale of knives and banning the sale of acid to under-18s. When the Home Secretary visited Mansfield, she spoke to my local officers about the challenges in addressing antisocial behaviour, particularly for under-18s, where perhaps where officers have to go away and look at the powers that they have to deal with those issues. And I hope she took that away to try and come up with some appropriate answers. Crime's changing all the time, and the way that police respond to crime has to change as well. It's good news that £1.9 billion is being invested in the National Cyber Security Strategy in order to help counter the cyber threats the UK faces on an increasingly regular basis. And the National Crime Agency's budget has also been protected. A new capital investment of over £200 million will be provided to transform the agency into a world-leading law enforcement organisation with new digital and investigative capability to tackle cybercrime, child exploitation, the distribution of criminal finances, which is so important in the current international climate. Protecting women and girls from violence and supporting victims is of the utmost importance, and to support the government's commitment to tackling violence against women and girls, we've pledged £100 million of increased funding to 2020. Of course, forces must also respond to the increased terrorist threats. It's not just London that faces this. We saw with the horrific attack in Manchester last year and counter-terrorism operations taking place across the whole country, that it's important all of our police forces build on their counter-terrorism work. I recall quite recently even that the Idlewell shopping centre in Sutton in Ashfield was evacuated because of a suspicious package. So all of our forces have to be vigilant. When it comes to counter-terror funding, the police grant report announced that the policing budget will go up by 7%, increase from £707 million to at least £757 in 2018-19. We're funding a 15% increase in the numbers of intelligence officers so that we can better respond to terror threats. We've made funding available to train an additional 1,900 intelligence officers at MI5, MI6 and GCHQ. Policing and the policing budget is not simply about how many police officers we have on the ground at any one time. The counter-terrorism strategy is being updated to ensure the police and security services also have all the powers they need. And on a more local level, the government passed legislation recently to allow police and crime commissioners to look at what powers they give out to people in their communities, including PCSOs, and to try and make them more effective on a local level. I had much more to say, but I'll finish just by saying that as the son of a police officer and a family of police officers, I'm incredibly proud of the work that the police do, and I fully support the action that the government is taking.